Season 4, Episode 9 of Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Ghastly Grinner. An episode about a comic book villain that's come alive. And an absolutely excellent episode. So this is what the Ghastly Grinner looks like. But the story itself is so creative. It mixes comic books with Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is a horrifying episode and a scary one, so of course it's told by the horrifying Betty Ann. She's tired of these little kitty stories. She's here to scare your pants off. And then scare your pants back on again. So our main character, Ethan Wood, is an inspiring comic book artist. So he goes to where else? A comic book shop for its grand opening and gets greeted by this girl, who is not the villain, but she does act very odd and keeps calling him Cakes for some reason. I don't know if she's trying to hit on him or what, but she looks quite a bit older. So this punk rock chick from the 80s lets Ethan Wood know that he's the one she's been waiting for. And after unsuccessfully trying to sell him on some of the comic books, I guess it's the grand opening, but the comic books aren't selling very well. She tries to sell him two hilarious titles. A Fishman comic book, which has to be a takeoff of Aquaman, and one called Dust Boy. She tells him that his comic book stylings remind her of an unknown artist by the name of Sylvester Uncas, who wrote one comic book, The Tale of the Ghastly Grinner, before passing away. And she gives him this comic book. And the set design here is great. To my surprise, if you look around, which I'll show right here, they actually put real comics in this comic book shop. You see X-Men, Punisher, Red Blade. It's always a little confusing to figure out when they can do product placement and when they can't. Seems like with this comic book shop, they don't care. You can just show comics. But if you were to show like a Sprite can or something, that would be a problem. I guess maybe it's like having a library scene where there's a bunch of books in the background. Are you going to pay rights to all those authors? Of course not. But here they're very prominently displayed. You see X-Men in huge letters. And the set design for this comic book shop is great. It actually feels real. It feels alive. This episode does a lot of things that other Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes don't do. In fact, we even get a car chase scene. You see this Ghastly Grinner ends up turning Ethan's parents into bigger slobs than they were before. We see them lounging, watching TV. His father, a stained wife-beater t-shirt, eating popcorn. The Ghastly Grinner comes to get them. It makes them look slightly more crazy than before. It makes them constantly laugh and have green ooze dripping from their mouths. That's how you can tell that the Ghastly Grinner has got someone. Do they have crazy eyes? Are they laughing like the Joker and spewing fluid all over the place? The way he makes this Ghastly Grinner appear, though, is very silly. So he's reading his comic book in his class, and his teacher takes it and puts it in a fish tank. So what does he do? Well, when Ethan gets home, the comic is wet, so he puts it in the microwave and accidentally leaves it in there for too long. And that somehow summons the Ghastly Grinner. This episode keeps reminding us that microwaves are very important. They're going to play into how he's able to defeat this monster at the end. He teams up with his newfound friend, Hooper, who's a very nerdy girl who constantly reminds us that she doesn't like jokes. She doesn't think anything is funny, and she might have a bit of a crush on Ethan as well. Her parents also get taken in by the Ghastly Grinner, start chasing them, their mouths pouring with this goosebumps type green foam. And then we get my favorite scene, because it's not something they've ever done in this series before. Although shoot parts outside, they'll use a combination of sets and also outdoor locations. They're not completely confined to sets, thank God, like some of the series we've covered before, Tales from the Dark Side. But they board this bus, trying to escape from the Ghastly Grinner, and then this bus starts going crazy and swerving up and down on the road. And we get a reference to the Exorcist with the bus driver turning his head around, and you can see that he's been taken in by the Ghastly Grinner as well. So it's Ethan's parents, it's Hooper's parents, it's the bus driver. This guy is getting everyone around town and turning them into these green, foaming, cackling monsters. And it's a great scene and one you really don't expect to see in a series like this. So not only do we get a great villain, we see all the people that he ends up possessing and they become villains as well. So it's constantly this parade of people chasing after them that are changed into these monsters. Because it's not until the end that you really get to see the Ghastly Grinner a lot, but you see him pop up for a second and change these people, and then they become his minions. So you get a lot of monsters, not just one. In the only part that I think feels rushed in this episode, Ethan faces the Ghastly Grinner by going into a comic book. You kind of saw this coming. he writes comic books. You figured he was going to jump into them, but I think the drawings here could have been a bit better. It's also clear that as Hooper's flipping through these pages, they didn't make an actual comic book and then zoom into certain parts of it. They're just drawings on a piece of paper. It would have been nice to see them actually make an entire one that had a front and a back and have her flip through it, but instead it just zooms into a piece of paper. We see her flip something over, then it zooms into another piece of paper. I guess this part was a bit rushed, but he is able to finally beat the Ghastly Grinner with a microwave. Of course he uses a microwave. And we see that the punk rock girl was the daughter of the writer of the Ghastly Grinner, Mr. Uncas himself, which we kind of figured, so not really a twist, but it ties everything together nicely. This is an excellent episode, 9 out of 10. I've always had an interest in comic books, but never owned a ton of them. Like, I maybe owned 10 in my entire life. As a kid, I would sometimes go to comic book shops and thumb through them, especially the Spawn comics. Those are always my favorites. But I never really got into collecting them, and now you can just look them up on the internet. This episode mixes a few different things, and it doesn't go completely wacko. There's a few funny parts, like how Hooper doesn't ever want to laugh, even when the Ghastly Grinner grabs her and goes, "Why aren't you laughing?" She's like, "I don't know, I don't have a sense of humor." And the Ghastly Grinner, and I'm getting tired of saying that name, is played by Neil Khrushchev, who was the director of the movie Barcode, and a bunch of French films that are always fun to pronounce, like René Levesque, and also L'Ange de Godon. Nailed it. And his performance is perfect, because the costume is obviously one of a jester, and his take on it is he just acts like the Joker. This is obviously just a Joker impression from Batman, but it comes off as genuinely scary rather than just corny. The Ghastly Grinner doesn't make too many jokes, so it doesn't feel too dumbed down. This is an easy 9 out of 10 episode. Main character Ethan Wood is played by Amos Crowley, who's in The Virgin Suicides as John, and voiced Al in the series Little Bear. 42 episodes. And he's still acting today. His last credit in 2026, episode of Air Crash Investigation. Next up we have episode 10, The Tale of the Fire Ghost. And check out our playlist for all the series we've covered. Currently doing Twilight Zone, Black Mirror, Are You Afraid of the Dark, and Mystery Science Theater 3000. We've also done live streams under the live streams tab where we're covering the Monsters series. Thank you.